This is my third video update coming to you from Larnaca, Cyprus on this Saturday night, June the 24th. So we have some breaking news, and that breaking news is that Prigozhin and the Wagner forces that were driving towards Moscow in what Prigozhin was branding the March for Justice. Is that what he called it? The March for Justice, or the Drive for Justice, something like that. Anyway, Prigozhin, he is turning around and he is heading back to Wagner's camp. They are stopping their drive towards Moscow and they are turning around. That is the breaking news. This was a deal that was done with Lukashenko. Lukashenko stepped in and mediated a deal with Prigozhin, where Prigozhin and Wagner, they stop their push towards Moscow, and in exchange, they're going to get security guarantees, whatever that means. We don't really have many details as to what was worked out. But one of the things that they worked out was security guarantees. That's what Lukashenko has said in a statement. And so all the Wagner soldiers that followed Prigozhin on this crazy mission, this crazy adventure, if you even want to call it that, this reckless adventure, I imagine that they're not going to face any charges. I guess that's one of the conditions of this deal, I imagine. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out the details. Maybe we'll find out the details as the days pass. But that's it. That is the end of this crisis that unfolded a day and a half ago. And it's interesting that Lukashenko has stepped in to work out this deal. Many Telegram channels, I believe Slavyangrad being one, they noted how in 2020 it was Putin and Russia that stepped in to stop the EU Svetlana Tikhanovskaya coup against Lukashenko, and they saved Lukashenko from a coup d'etat that the EU was sponsoring, and it looks like Lukashenko is kind of returning the favor by mediating this deal. Another interesting point is that Erdogan was one of the first leaders to actually call Putin and tell Putin that Turkey has his back, that Turkey is supporting Putin. And it was Russia and Putin that kind of saved Erdogan in 2016 when there was a very, very real and very serious coup d'etat underway in Turkey. But there it is. We have this crisis wrapped up, and Prigozhin came out with a statement, and he said something like violence was avoided and blood being spilt was avoided, and we're turning back and going to our camp. And that was pretty much the statement from Prigozhin. So what a past, what a day we have had. Putin, I think Putin in his speech that he gave earlier today, I don't think when he was mentioning treason and treachery and betraying the fatherland, the motherland, I don't think he mentioned Prigozhin by name. And I think he mentioned Wagner. I think he said Wagner has betrayed Russia, but I don't think he said Prigozhin has betrayed Russia or Prigozhin has committed treason. And in my opinion, this was treason. I don't think you can describe it in any other way. This was a treasonous act, whatever the motivations behind it were. But Putin was very careful not to box himself in, I believe, as he was thinking of his negotiation options. And I think that's why he didn't specifically, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't think he specifically said that Prigozhin has committed treason. I think that was deliberate, so that when they do negotiate, he wasn't going to box himself in as far as what he could give and take. And another interesting point is that the Russian government, they allowed this convoy to drive from Rostov to Moscow, and Prigozhin said he was 200 kilometers from Moscow. So, from what I know, I believe Rostov is like a 5-hour drive from Rostov to Moscow, and so you would think that if this really was a dangerous, well planned, let's say if this was a very well planned attempt at overthrowing the Russian government with Western backing, you would think that the Russian military would just annihilate this convoy as it was driving up to Moscow. I mean, what kind of a coup d'etat attempt has a convoy of military, of Wagner, of these guys driving from Rostov to Moscow, just driving on a highway, and the Russian military doesn't annihilate it? And I'm sure they had multiple opportunities to just knock this convoy out. Prigozhin said it was a convoy of like 5,000 men, whatever the size. I mean, it's driving from Rostov to Moscow on a huge open highway. But Putin allowed the convoy to approach Moscow. To me, this shows that Putin understood a couple of things. I think it shows that Putin understood that this, while this was reckless and dangerous, and the Russian government took all the precautions that it needed to take, martial law, blocking out the information space, shutting down events, while the Russian government did all of these things, it shows me that Putin understood that this wasn't a well-planned, well-thought-out operation that Prigozhin was running. So I think he understood that. And Prigozhin, when he started this thing that he started, this coup d'etat, this insurrection, whatever you want to call it, he didn't really have a goal. What was his stated goal when all of this broke out? His stated goal was, I'm here in Rostov, and I'm calling on Shoigu and Gerasimov to come to Rostov and face me. Let's get in the octagon, I mean, that was pretty much his stated goal. So I think the Putin administration, they understood that this thing is not very well thought out. And if it did have some Western backing, we don't know if it did, but I'm saying if it did, then obviously the Western backing wasn't well thought out and well planned out either. Because if this was a well thought out, well planned attempt at removing the government, well, then the military, they just would have said, okay, here's this convoy, it's just driving, let's just take it out. I mean, why let it approach Moscow? I mean, it's crazy. So I think Putin understood that, and Putin didn't want to box himself in by specifically saying that Prigozhin had committed treason, because he understood that he's going to perhaps need to give and take a little in order to de-escalate this. And that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what occurred, because I think the number one goal for the Putin government when this crisis broke out was to avoid bloodshed, to avoid violence. You don't want to have Russians firing at Russians. That's kind of a civil war, you could say, right? You want to avoid those optics. You don't want to give that red meat, and that would be juicy red meat for the Zelensky regime and for the collective West to dig into. The Russian military is attacking Wagner. Russian military destroys Wagner convoy. Dozens of Wagner soldiers dead, or Russian soldiers attacked by Wagner. Whatever. You don't want to have those optics playing out, because then you don't know what could happen and how things could spiral out of control. So I think the number one goal of avoiding bloodshed and avoiding violence was achieved, and you're not handing over the horrible optics of Russians going after Russians, Russian military fighting Russian military, quasi-military. You don't give those optics over to the collective West. Prigozhin has already given them enough. He's already given them so much with this stupid, reckless thing that he had going on. This meltdown that he had. He has essentially guaranteed that Zelensky is going to get more money and more military aid. He has guaranteed that during the NATO conference in Vilnius, all of the leaders will have an easy time not talking about the failed counteroffensive, and now they can focus on the fractures in the Russian military and the fractures in the Russian government, and the coup attempt, and how they could probably create the conditions for another coup attempt. They're going to say. I mean, Prigozhin has handed the collective West, as I said in my morning video, a gift, a huge gift. And Prigozhin has probably prolonged the conflict. I mean, this was an F-up of epic proportions. But it wasn't a well-thought-out plan, and the Putin government, they realized this, and they realized that the best option, when they weighed everything out, they realized that the best outcome and the best option was to de-escalate this and to avoid bloodshed as best they can, and they achieved that. And we don't know what the give and take was, what Lukashenko bargained with Prigozhin, what he gave to Prigozhin, what Prigozhin is going to concede to Lukashenko. Some people say that one of the conditions was that Shoigu and Gerasimov, they have to resign. That's what some rumors are saying. I find that very, very hard to believe. I think that would be an embarrassment for the Putin administration to fold to Prigozhin's demands and to fire the Minister of Defense and the military commander, all because Prigozhin has a meltdown. So I doubt that, but maybe we'll find out what the deal was. What happens to Prigozhin now? I don't know. I imagine that some people will be arrested. They're going to have to arrest some people. I mean, they just can't let this go. This was very, very serious. And so some people are going to have to be arrested. Prigozhin, I don't know, maybe they'll just kind of set him off to the side and deal with him later, and I don't know, maybe get him the help that he needs. Because this was in a certain way, this was a cry for help. You know, I mean, this guy had a meltdown. He had an absolute meltdown, and he committed treason. In my opinion, he committed treason, but it's not up to me to decide. It's up to the president of Russia and his administration and the Russian Constitution and the Russian law to decide if this was treason. So that's what I think awaits Prigozhin. That's what that's the situation. I don't have anything else to say. I'm tired. Let's end the video. The Duran.locals.com. Go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOOD DAY. Take care.